Hey everybody, welcome in to the first edition of Bold Predictions, brought to you by us good folks at Inside Nebraska. Is sort of a loose and fun podcast, and hopefully with some actual analysis. That'll probably be from Steve with the serious football analysis, and the other three of us kind of mess around for a little bit. Kind of want to do this every Friday for game week, just to kind of give something fun to lay out and get bold, get weird, guys. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't know how bold you're gonna get. I know Steve texted me with one where he's like, "Is that dumb or is it bold?" I'm like, and all I could think of is the line from The Office, like, "Is bold the right word?" Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if I went bold enough, so I guess we will see.
What's funny is actually I've done these before, and I came up with a point system like midway through the season, because people were asking like, so who's weighing the standings for the bold predictions? We're like, we don't have standings, so I came up with a scoring system that I'll carry over here. I guess we could lay it down right now, actually. So my made up scoring system, that's kind of like whose line is it anyway, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. I think I said you get 1 point if you get your bold prediction right. You get an extra bonus point if it's extra bold. So if you say like Casey Thompson's going to throw 6 touchdown passes and he does, you get 2 points. You get a half a point if you a half a point for getting the correct winner, and then another full point if you get the total score right. I think that's what it was. I'm trying to remember off the cuff here. I think I maybe even gave out a half a point for if you got your prediction close, but that's very subjective. I think I just added that to give myself more half points so I could jump up in the made up standings. But we'll workshop that. You guys are learning just as we are on the fly here. I'm over in Dublin on the ground for Nebraska's season opener on Saturday, 5:30 local time, 11:30 a.m. Central Time. Actually, as we're recording this, we're exactly 27 hours away from kickoff. Steve, do you have a countdown by the seconds over there? Just could be football.
No, I'm just at a kind of a standstill in my life, just waiting for this thing to happen. I feel like I've just been, I don't know, I've been stuck in mud, and yesterday kind of felt, I don't know about you guys, yesterday kind of felt like the day where it started, like people around here started feeling like, hey, we got football in 2 days. Like, I mean, Greg, you talk about the tingle that you felt inside. It was really fun.
I don't know. I didn't know if we were bringing the tingle in my plums out to this podcast. But yes, I was excited. It does feel like football is back. I'm with you, Steve. Like yesterday, like the board activity at Inside Nebraska, just people, like if you like left your house yesterday, did you start to see like Husker flags and all of that stuff? I was out at a high school football game last night. Like it feels like, things are back.
Yeah, Jeff, are you excited this year? I mean, you had the Adrian Martinez show last year, and there was a bunch of different things that you were keeping up with while going through the Athletes Unfiltered podcast. Is this like kind of a reset or refreshing for you, since you don't have, I guess, that on your plate?
Yeah, I mean, it is, like you said, refreshing not to have, I guess, a stake in the team in terms of, because there's a direct correlation there with the podcast. But no, it'll be cool because a bunch of new faces, a bunch of coaching staff changes. It's going to be a refreshing look at the team. And yeah, this is a very important stage of this program. And so being able to just come along for the ride and see what happens, I'm really excited.
Yeah, and we're inching closer and closer, Steve. I think yesterday was probably when it really set in that football is right around the corner because of the Al Pacino speech. I don't think that was thinly veiled, your excitement there. So did you watch that clip before we recorded to get yourself hyped up?
I have not done it today, but yesterday I probably watched it like 5 or 6 times. Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I've watched it like if I'm at the gym before, if I'm trying to like hype myself up, get through the last half of the workout. I'm like, all right, Al, come on, bring it home for me. The inches we need are everywhere around us.
Right in your face.
Then we're ready to go. And speaking of ready to go, we're going to start off with bold predictions. We're going to go with where my screen is. We're going to go clockwise, starting down below here with Steve in the bottom right square. It's Hollywood Squares and Whose Line Is It Anyway references today. But Steve, what's your first bold prediction?
Okay, so Marquise Buford Jr., who we believe to be starting opposite of Miles Farmer at safety in the defensive backfield. I think Marcus Buford Jr. is going to have the third most tackles. Now, I say third most, that may be oddly specific because I think obviously the two inside linebackers, Luke Reimer and Nick Henrik, will be 1 and 2 in the tackle rankings after the game. But as for that third spot, I think Buford is going to really show that he's a solid tackler and he's not afraid, despite his small frame, to stick his nose in there and kind of make people feel him, ball carriers feel him. So, I mean, he's a black shirt as a second-year player. That's really impressive. The coaches glow about him. I'm just really, really interested to see him at work. And I think he's going to be a really strong tackler in Nebraska's defensive backfield. So Marcus Buford Jr., third most tackles against Northwestern.
Coming out of the gates hot with a real bold one. But honestly, like, that kind of is bold because, I mean, he's a secondary player. And it's interesting because I think you're on the money there, like what Travis Fisher was talking about. Quentin Newsom and Travis Fisher, Quentin at Big Ten Media Days, and Fisher a couple days later talked about just his motor and how he's just always flying sideline to sideline, like doesn't really give up on plays and is always giving that all-out effort. So I feel like, yeah, we could see him flying around, right, and making double-digit tackles possibly. Yeah,
and just depending on how the game goes, what Northwestern's offense wants to do against Nebraska's defense, I could see if Shenander wants another hat in the tackle box, I could see Buford being that safety who kind of rotates down to linebacker level and just letting him go to work. And Miles Farmer behind him, kind of playing center field behind him. So I think that there's a strong possibility of that happening. I'm anxious to see if it is. But yeah, I mean, I really like the potential that Buford shows. And boy, he was super passionate when he was interviewed about getting his black shirt, and that was really cool. And I think it means a lot to him. And I think he's going to come in there and really kind of open eyes.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of 8 in the box and trying to stop that Northwestern running game, that's kind of a perfect segue into Jeff. I know what one of your bold predictions was that Northwestern running game. So hit them with us, hit them out of the gate strong here with what you got.
So, yeah, I'm going to go after the Northwestern's run game a little bit and say that they get at least 3 rushing touchdowns on Saturday in Irish soil. I'm not bought on the defensive line for Nebraska just yet. A lot of new faces are within the rotation. That obviously is going to have some growing pains, and I foresee more of that than highlights on Saturday. The defensive line group will improve, no doubt about it, but it's going to be an adjustment with a bunch of new guys in Ireland. And I also like Northwestern's offensive line. Obviously, Skoronski on the outside. He's giving me a first rounder. You got another side on the right tackle. Steve, you'd probably know his name. I don't want to try and pronounce it. I'd probably butcher it. But no, I think they got the pieces there to establish a run game. And obviously, I think last year's experience, especially with this coaching staff, taking away from last year where teams did load up in the box, I think is going to help them this year with the run game, considering I think they're going to have an improved offensive line and they have that experience of teams just not respecting their passing game at all. And so I think with those 2 factors combined, I think that suits up for Northwestern to kind of run rampant a little bit come Saturday.
Yeah, that defensive line is something that I think we've all talked about ad nauseum of, like, are they talented enough? Are they experienced enough? Are they deep enough? Because you really only have Ty Robinson and then Colton Feast. Awesome story, but I feel like we're all in agreement. He's still a former walk-on. Like he could blow up and have an awesome year this year. I mean, he's clearly shown the coaches in practice. I mean, Shenander's been giving him praise all season. He earned a black shirt too. So it's certainly possible, but still, I think it's one of those situations, like a lot of these positions, like the secondary, for instance, of a lot of talent, but they still have to prove it. So I think this first game. Yeah, I said this on a radio show last night that from Northwestern's offensive standpoint, I think a key to the path to a win is controlling the ball and grinding out the clock with the run game. So if you can attack that middle of the defense or middle of the line and get chunk plays and get yourself into third and shorts, where you could run or pass and it's not an obvious passing situation, yeah, I think it could bode well for them. But Greg, hit us with it. I've been waiting on you this whole time. I know you got a good one for us. I actually don't know if you have a good one for us. I can't remember which one you
good.
said.
I'm glad that I will surprise you with this. And it's funny because Jeff was talking about Northwestern's offensive line, and it's a good offensive line, and I do think their left tackle is good. I got questions about the rest of that line, and therefore my bold prediction, or my first bold prediction, is that Nebraska will rack up at least 5 sacks in this game. So here's how we got there with 5. And like Steve, me and Steve are in sync here because I'm like, it's an oddly specific number, like his third tackles for Marquise Buford. But the reason we got to 5 is because Nebraska's high water mark last season for sacks in a game was 4. Actually, and it was against Northwestern as well. And so I think that Nebraska, with an improved pass rush, led by kind of this 3-headed monster of Garrett Nelson, O'Shawn Mathis, Caleb Tanner, and Caleb still intimidating me from that picture of the black shirts that they tweeted out from the Huskers account. If you haven't seen that, it's all over social. But that trio, plus, don't forget about the ability to blitz from the inside with Luke Reimer and Nick Henrich. And then even those guys at corner, Tommy Hill, Quentin Newsome, like we've seen Eric Shenander bring some of those types of blitzes too. I think Nebraska gets home at least 5 times in this game, which would be a hugely positive sign going with what Jeff's prediction is about the rushing touchdowns, because Nebraska, if they get those 5 sacks, that also means that they kept Northwestern in those passing situations and out of those very third and manageables. So yeah, 5 sacks, book it.
That's kind of a perfect segue into mine too, because I wanted to go a sack fumble route, because it's what we keep talking about. Like if we see that package of Caleb Tanner, O'Shawn Mathis, and Garrett Nelson all on the field, like if they can get Northwestern, or any team this year, but specifically Northwestern for this weekend, if they can get them into those 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 9 situations where they're clearly going to have to pass the ball, I don't believe in Ryan Helinski as a quarterback, and I think he's going to be susceptible to losing the ball in the pocket if he has those guys bearing down on him. So I'm going to go the Nebraska defense forces 3 turnovers after what they forced 13 last year, and that was I think it was, they finished 12th in the Big Ten, ahead of I think it was Indiana and I can't remember the other team, but I'm pretty sure they finished 12th for the fewest amount of turnovers forced. They're going to stack 3 after the first game. And to go bold, I'm going to go with 2 sack fumbles, 2 strip sacks, and an interception by Tommy Hill. And we're going to keep the hype train rolling on Tommy Hill. Wouldn't that be perfect after this entire offseason, over and over and over, that we hear Tommy Hill, he's going to have his jersey up in the rafters, which is like incredibly high praise from Travis Fisher. Wouldn't it be kind of perfect, like a pretty cool narrative if Tommy Hill does come up with that interception? And I'm not predicting he houses it for 6, but I'm going to predict that he snags one on Saturday. Or who knows, maybe he's one of those players who the production didn't match the hype after a whole off season of just
if he gets that pick 6, do you get half a point?
No,
just throwing it out there.
I didn't officially put it.
Okay, it's not officially on the docket. All right.
Exactly. That's a rule of bold predictions. You can't just like start throwing out, well, maybe this could happen or that could happen, and then retroactively be like, oh, see, well, I did say it could happen. You gotta be a man, put your foot down and put it in ink, or put it on record. In this case, that's a bold prediction. But Steve, we got your next one.
Yeah. So, man, I need to up my boldness here. Timmy Bleekrode, the field goal kicker. I think he's going to be 100% on his field goal attempts on Saturday. How's that for boldness?
Still low mark, right? Like
I know.
I mean,
but just considering last year, like what Nebraska fans went through in the field goal kicking game, I just think that however many attempts he's going to get, I think he's going to make all of them. And I think it's just going to be a breath of fresh air for Nebraska fans to have a field goal kicker that you can depend on. They had, I don't know. I just think it's going to, with the new offense and it being a season opener, I think the defenses might be ahead of the offenses a little bit here. And I think that Mark Whipple's offense, Nebraska's offense, could maybe move well between the 20s. But once they get closer to the end zone, I think Northwestern's defense might, tighten up and do a little better against the offense, which will lead to more field goal attempts. And I don't know, I just got a good feeling about Timmy Bleekrode from his time at Furman, and I think he's going to make all of his field goal attempts, however many that is on Saturday.
Yeah, and Jeff, real quick before you go, since Steve, you did most of the Northwestern scouting between the two of us, and by that I mean all of the Northwestern scouting between the two of us. Isn't that kind of what Northwestern's defenses are known for, is buckling up in the red zone? I mean, what do you anticipate them having that same MO this year and same MO on Saturday?
Yeah, it's definitely a bend but don't break kind of culture on defense over there with Mike Hankwitz, who's not the DC anymore, but a couple years ago he was. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that might have a really good chance of happening just because of all the newness on offense with Nebraska. I'm just not sure how polished the red zone offense is going to be, how polished the offense just in general is going to be. But I could see them moving to the ball and then just stalling out all the time on Saturday, and then just having Bleekrode there to be an effective field goal kicker. I think that's just going to be a really good thing to have, and I think we could see a lot of field goal attempts maybe on Saturday.
Yeah, Jeff, you have a special teams related bold prediction as well. No kicks fielded at the 2-yard line this year.
Unfortunately, no, but I'll stick with special teams like Steve did, and I'll go with Brian Buschini. I'm saying his yards per punt is at least 45 yards. I like what he's brought over the offseason. He brings, I don't know, a sense of professionalism to the punter position. I really liked when he had his latest media availability a week or two ago when he talked about how the coaches set him up with former Husker professional punters like Sam Cook, a 16-year NFL veteran. They set him up with veterans like that to discuss and get feedback off just certain routines and techniques. And I really like what they did with that. And I feel like that's going to translate well onto the field. And remember, too, he did mention that they are preparing for any type of weather. They punted when it was raining outside. So they're getting used to all sorts of different scenarios that they're going to be put in. And I like Brian Buschini. I think he's going to do good. I think the special team unit is going to be revamped this season. I think that's going to show with him averaging at least 45 yards a punt in Ireland.
Yeah, Jeff, you did the story on him. Didn't he gain, like, how many pounds of muscle did he gain over the offseason? I can't remember what the number was or like what the physical changes were exactly.
I can't recall exactly either, but I think it was in the realm of 10 pounds, something like that. But yeah, he gained a lot of weight, and he mentioned he's a lot of confidence, especially with Bill Bush now in charge of that special teams unit. He connected well with Bill, and I think, yeah, I like the vibes of the special teams unit, I guess, of what they've been putting out. Again, we could say that with any group, but I think with the way they've redone this, the way they're approaching it, they're taking it seriously now. I think that's going to show, and I like Brian Buschini there in charge of the punting unit.
Yeah, it's funny, like from the outside looking in, it like not someone who wasn't following Nebraska at all over the last year, who didn't know anything about it at all, be like, they're making special teams bold predictions. Like, those are so simple. 45 yards yard average on punts. The kicker's not going to miss any field goals, but it's like, yeah, that actually is kind of bold compared to what they had to deal with last year. And as far as the field conditions, Scott Frost at the press conference, I'm reading the quote, said on the wind and the potential impact on the kicking game, said it's definitely windier outside than than it is in. It seems like a pretty controlled environment, so I don't anticipate any big problems. It is a little chillier here, not like cold, but I mean, right now it's 63. Probably the low for tomorrow is 50 degrees. And by the time second half is kicking off, or at least the fourth quarter, it'll probably be in that low to mid 50s range with the sun going down and everything. So, and it's natural grass. I know a lot of stuff is always made about that. I mean, covering Ohio State Northwestern game in 2019, literally all week, it was in Evans. The game was in Evanston all week. People were talking about how big of an effect is the grass going to be? The grass. I'm like, why did we have to have Ryan Day spend 10 minutes of a filibuster talking about grass? And then they went out and won by like 50 points. So,
because doesn't Ryan Field keep it super long?
Yeah, that's why. But I mean, still, when we showed up there, is like, I think it was a little overblown because I was expecting like, I don't know, like a abandoned apartment complex type of grass, like the way up to your head. But yeah, I mean, checking out the field, I looked at the grass yesterday. Good grass over there at Viva Stadium, and they have two big signs that say "Keep off of the grass," which reminds me of Shrek and Duloc. But that's two Shrek references in as many days. Greg, get me off of this. Go with your next bowl.
I don't know how I can follow the Shrek reference. And it's funny, though, that you say that about the special team stuff. I am not going special teams, but those do feel very bold to me, considering what we've all kind of had to endure over the last couple of years. But mine is related to the running back. So all fall camp, I've been on the Anthony Grant train. I have been there, a car carrier member. I'm driving the bus, the train, whatever mode of transportation we want to go with. So I'm going to say that Nebraska has a 100-yard rusher in this game against Northwestern. Now, I think the last year's game was the only one that they had 100, like Northwestern's game last year was the only game in which they had a running back go for 100 yards when Yant did it. But I'm going to throw a curveball, and this is going to be an extra bold one, so I can get that bonus point. Gabe Ervin will actually be the player, though, that ends up getting the 100-yard game. Jeff was talking about the vibes, and he led me in perfectly with this. I've been feeling the vibes from Gabe Ervin. You saw some of the stuff like with him throughout fall camp. Like, he just seems focused. He's huge. He's bigger now. He was big before. He's bigger now. And it seems like even through the rehab from the knee injury, he's been able to add really good mass to his frame. And I think that those two, him and Grant, will provide a really nice 1-2 punch. But I could just see Gabe Ervin breaking one off that propels him to a 100-yard game. So I'm going to go with that as my bold prediction. And it's funny, and already I can feel what Zach's going to say, because you're going to say our bold predictions included a couple of special teams things and a 100-yard rusher, which is not all that uncommon. But if you go look for Nebraska, that has definitely both of those things, especially that rusher, which I think has now kind of become a sore point for Nebraska football fans with how the running game tradition is around here. I think it counts as bold.
No, it counts as bold. It's different worlds, because I'm used to, all right, is Travion Henderson, should I predict him to have 200 rushing yards or 250 yards rushing? Like, who's going to be, is it going to be Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson, who I'm going to predict to score 3 touchdowns this week? So, I mean, it's different worlds because the programs are at completely different levels. With Anthony Grant, whoever wants to answer this, if anyone has thoughts, there's a couple weeks ago, Anthony Grant, we reported that he was emerging as the number 1 running back, but it feels like over the past couple of weeks, Gabe Ervin, like you were saying, Greg, is kind of started to. I don't know if he's supplanted Grant as the RB1, or if they might be neck and neck, like RB1A and RB1B or whatever. I don't know. It feels like Ervin's stock has been sort of steadily rising over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's felt like that to me, that we did start off with like really hot with Anthony Grant, and it felt like he was going to ascend towards really taking a hold of that job. And Gabe Ervin just seems like, from just talking to people, just never really went away, right? And has just been kind of steady in that race. And I do think that it's fair to say, like, I don't think that even whichever one starts, I don't think that it's going to be like he's the only one that sees carries by any means. I think that the other one will play, and in fact, probably a third running back, probably gets in there. You're going to see Ramir kind of line up at some point in the backfield as well, like coming from that wide back position, right? I think that you'll see multiple running backs back there, but I do think that those two, Grant and Ervin, have kind of separated themselves from the larger pack, and probably are a 1A, 1B at this point.
Yeah, we've Steve, did you have any other comments to throw in there?
Well, just to touch on Ervin, what a story that is going to be, because I'm with you, Greg. I think he's going to play quite a bit. And I'm also with you in thinking that there's going to be a pretty good rotation at running back. I believe it's not just going to be all Anthony Grant getting the carries, I don't think, especially for the season opener, and maybe even bleeding into North Dakota and Georgia Southern. So until Applewhite gets a really good look at what these guys can actually do in a game setting. But getting back to the story of like Gabe Ervin, like he started last year. He was a true freshman, beat out all these guys. I know Grant wasn't here last year, but he still won the job last year because he played with such a maturity that you don't really see with true freshman running backs in college. He was out there picking up blitzes on third downs. You just don't see that from like 18-year-old true freshmen. And to have him go through that knee injury against Oklahoma, be out the entire year, go through a rehab process, see his running back coach get fired, a new one hired who didn't know who he was, and then just to not go through spring ball and pick things up in fall camp and now be in the position that he is right now. That's absolutely incredible stuff from Gabe Ervin. Every single time that dude talks, maturity. It just looks like maturity. Like he's a grown adult already. I just love everything that Gabe Ervin is kind of showing right now. And I absolutely am going to be rooting for him this year to do well, just because of the person that he is. But on the field too, I think he's going to be like the whole package. You mentioned his body frame, 6'1". He's around 220 pounds. He said earlier in an interview, and that's 10 pounds bigger than he was last year. So I'm just really excited to see what he can bring. He's fast, he's strong, he can block too. I think Nebraska's running back room is sitting in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, and speaking of Gabe Ervin and him talking with the media, it was Ervin who was 2-3 weeks ago was talking about the staffing changes and how I can't remember. I think he said 180 degree difference, or he said night and day difference between last year and this year. Just Steve, I don't know if you have thoughts on this, like, and you were kind of touching on it right there, but with Gabe Ervin, now that he's back and now he has a new offensive coordinator, new running backs coach, but in Mark Whipple's system, do you see how he would fit into that, his offensive schemes as far as what Ervin brings to the field?
Yeah. So just watching some of the Pitt stuff last year, like obviously Whipple threw the ball a lot, all 3 years he was at Pitt, but I just think that like, Ervin is going to do everything that everything that you need a running back to do in an offense. I think Ervin is capable of doing that. And obviously Anthony Grant's going to be capable of doing that too, as well as other running backs if they get the opportunity too. So I have no reservations about, Ervin and kind of what he needs to do or what he can't do out there. I think he can do everything. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Whipple wants to use running backs in his offense. There's been some talk about how it's going to be a Scott Frost run game and a Mark Whipple pass game. So if it's a Scott Frost run game, I mean, we saw what that looks like last year with all the orbit motions, and we'll see if the triple option stuff makes an appearance on Saturday. I'm not completely sold on if it will, although it might be smart just to toss it out there and see how Northwestern's defense reacts to it, because they reacted so poorly to it last year. Why not try it for a little bit and see if it happens and see if it works? But I mean, I think Gabe Ervin Jr. in a Mark Whipple offense is gonna do well.
Yeah, and speaking of the Pitt offense and Whipple, going back to Greg's 100-yard bold prediction, yeah, this is Mark Whipple. I mean, Pat Narduzzi will tell you that they didn't run the ball enough last year, so maybe we could add an extra half a point for boldness. We can't do that on a 100-yard rusher, though. We can't add an extra point for boldness.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little much. I'm with you. If I had said 120, but no, 100 is probably, that's fine. We can leave it at no extra half point. That's fine.
So we've gone now over 25 minutes, damn near 30 minutes, and we haven't talked about the quarterbacks, really. We haven't talked about Casey Thompson. And I'm going to assume that that's just like awesome unspoken chemistry between the four of us, with you three knowing that I was going to want to talk about Casey Thompson and the quarterbacks. I always do. That's why I was on a Ireland radio sports talk show today, and they asked who are the guys that casual fans need to be focused on. I'm like, I talked about Casey Thompson for like the majority of the time. I'm like, I mean, if we're boiling it down to one, rattled off a handful of others, but I'm like, if we're keeping it simple, number 11, Casey Thompson is the guy to watch. He's the guy I'm going to be focused on the entire time. It's who most Nebraska fans and just fans in general who are watching the game are going to be focused on. And they are not going to be disappointed on Saturday, because Casey Thompson is going to account for every Nebraska offensive touchdown in the game. And when I do my score prediction, I'll tell you how many, I guess. But actually, you know what? I'll just go ahead and tell you now. He's going to account for 4 offensive touchdowns for Nebraska. And if I want to go extra bold, which isn't that bold, but I'm going to go 3 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. I know we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks involved in the run game, how Whipple's been asked about that. And I think he said in one of his most recent availabilities, like he was kind of trying to give a non-answer of, yeah, we want to use them, but we want to keep them healthy, but he wasn't going to give anything schematically away. So I do think they'll use him, but I mean, not like he's not going to be rushing the ball 10 times up the middle or anything like that. So I've got Casey Thompson having a big day, and get that Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, get that churning a bit more, and maybe the Davey O'Brien Award, get extra chip on his shoulder for not being named to the watch list for that. But I don't know. I think, like Steve was saying, though, I traditionally defenses are always ahead of the offenses, and I think that this could be, in fact, probably will be a low-scoring game overall, or at least a defensive, like, I wouldn't say defensive slugfest. I don't think it's going to be 13-10 or anything like that, but it'll be interesting to see, with entire new offensive staff other than Sean Beckton, new quarterback, new running back pieces, offensive line that's been mixing and matching, and new receiver transfers. It's just so interesting to see how that transition is going to go in the first game that's a week earlier than normal in Ireland. You go from the middle of the U.S. all the way to Ireland after that whole trip, all these extra outside factors going in. Like, I do think that there's room for this could wind up being sort of a, I wouldn't even say helter-skelter game, but maybe out of rhythm, just as Nebraska's offense tries to find its footing, find its groove, and Northwestern's offense just doesn't do well. I don't believe in Ryan Helinski or the Northwestern offense. But I guess we'll get into score predictions now. Steve, you can start us off and let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's just a weird setting. It's a super weird setting across an ocean, 4,000 miles away. But I'm going 27-17, low scoring affair. Just like I've mentioned before, and what you mentioned, Zach, I just think we could see some rockiness on offense, and that'll benefit the defenses. So I'm just going with a 27-17 Husker win.
All right, Jeff, what we got?
All right. I'm saying the Huskers score their most points in an opener since their South Alabama win in 2019. They take care of business 35-27 over Northwestern. Got played up since I have Northwestern at least 3 rushing touchdowns, so it's got to be a little high scoring for me. I just think Nebraska has too much firepower. I just think the talent Nebraska has is way more. And I think it'd be kind of a shock if they didn't win. But I will also say this. It kind of goes along with what Zach, you said about Tommy Hill. I say Tommy Hill seals the deal with an interception late in the game.
Is he going to return for a touchdown?
No, he's not, but he's going to pick it off. Diving catch on a comeback route.
Oh, we're getting specific.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on the
That's
sideline.
really
Far sideline, comeback route, diving interception. I'll put it out there now.
Wow.
That might be worth 2 extra bonus points. But
Yeah, buy a lotto ticket if that happens.
You just really box yourself in there, because if it's an interception on a comeback route, diving on the near sideline, then we can't give you the bonus points because that was so specific. So yeah,
I'm just gonna
I just
put my foot down for that
on the go, but now we know we're establishing the rules. So Greg, what do you got for us?
I think I'm gonna make this a clean sweep on this one with a Husker win. Maybe a little bit lower scoring than what you guys had it. 24-10 is what I'm gonna go with here. That way we still get a couple of those field goals in for Timmy Bleekrode to hit 100%. Like Steve said,
Don't forget about Timmy. Come on.
Yeah, I'm trying not to forget about Timmy. I like that. I feel good about the specialists. Like, and how quickly that happened is just an amazing thing. As a side note, because boy, we were concerned about it. Think about where you were at the end of the Iowa game versus where you are now with special teams. It's a world away. But yeah, 24-10. I think Nebraska takes care of business. It's not always pretty, but it gets the job done and gives them something to build on. And you'll take that going into a softer part of the schedule coming up for the next couple of weeks.
I keep going back and forth on what final score I want to predict because of a few different factors. Like, I mean, all the stuff we kept saying about Ireland trip and offensive new faces and all that type of stuff. Defense always being ahead of the offense. The Nebraska, last I saw, was a 13.5 point favorite, and I think the over under was 49.5. So they're expecting a pretty comfortable Nebraska win, but pretty low scoring. And I'm curious what we don't have to get into this, I guess, as we wrap up here, but how you put recent history or opponent matchup history into effect when making these predictions, because I'm looking at it now. Since Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011, they played Northwestern 11 times. Other than last year's 56-7 game, which was just a complete anomaly when looking at the final scores between these two teams. The other 10 matchups, 8 of them were decided by 8 points or fewer. And sometimes it can be dangerous to like put that into consideration when making these predictions, because new team, new season. But I mean, Pat Fitzgerald's still the head coach of Northwestern. They're always going to grind it out, and maybe not always, as last year will show us, but typically they'll fight and grind and keep it close. But I have Nebraska covering the spread, and I'm taking the under, which life's too short to bet on the under, but I'm doing it anyway if I actually was betting. I have Nebraska 28, Northwestern 14, a nice clean 28-14 game, no field goals, no nothing, which obviously means that there's going to be a field goal on the very first drive of the game. But whatever I say here, it's never going to be as bad as the two. We got kind of weird on the Ohio State Bowl predictions. Ohio State Michigan game, I predicted Aiden Hutchinson would not tally any sacks. Pretty sure he had 3 in the first half, like 5 in the game. It was like the number one reason they won that game. And then I predicted the Ohio State Utah Rose Bowl to be like a 24-20 game where it was a defensive battle. And then it was like 24-20 by the end of the first quarter. It's like, oh, all right, well, whatever. You win some, you lose some. Win some, lose most. But that's why it's bold predictions. That's what we do here. on the Inside Nebraska podcast. Any parting thoughts for you guys before we go? I got to head out to his pep rally in Marion Square in Dublin. Got to go get jacked up a little bit for this game, right? So any last thoughts from you guys?
It's here. Game actual football is right here. It's around the corner. Depending on when you're listening to this, it could be coming up very shortly. So yay.
Yeah, you could save
my final thought is just, it's here. Tomorrow morning I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna be covering a game, and I'm here. It's awesome. Glad to be with you fellas. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, no. I concur with the rest. I would like to add a point, though, Zach, what you mentioned about Pat Fitzgerald. I think tomorrow will be a real test of how much the new coaches are taking in effect. Because I think the reason why Northwestern has been able to keep up with Nebraska, the reason why they've been so close to matches or football games these last few years has been because I think Pat Fitzgerald's coaching has kind of lifted them up from the lack of talent that they've had compared to Nebraska. So I think with the new coaching staff, new changes for Nebraska, if they come out tomorrow and handle Northwestern pretty cleanly, I think that's giving me more of testament to the new coaches rather than maybe the talent that's on the field, because Nebraska clearly has better talent.
Yeah, it's that sustainability, which has been so impressive from Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, I was explaining this earlier, Northwestern's program success, like record-wise, is so cyclical because it's so hard to recruit there, and they get the 2 and 3 star underdeveloped guys, and then they have to develop them over the course of 2, 3, 4 years, and then they'll have every 2, 3 years where they have a really standout season, like when they went to the Big Ten Conference Championship game during the shortened 2020 season, and then last year they went 3-9, or yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3-9, but
same record as Nebraska.
I'm sure Nebraska fans will be happy that you reminded them of that, Steve.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just funny that, or not funny, but impressive that Fitzgerald's been able to have that sustained success. And we'll see. One more bonus bowl prediction that I want to get from Jeff. He doesn't know that I'm gonna ask him this. Is Nebraska Volleyball winning the national championship this year?
Oh, you're putting it on me now.
I feel like if you said yes, that wouldn't even be that.
Wow.
It's like,
wow.
pick him to win the national championship. Like, all right.
I'll say yes. I think so. I think there's enough talent there. I think Texas is going to push them really close. Like, Texas had a bunch of new transfers. It's going to take them. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes them to gel together. But I think by the time December rolls around, I think it's going to be neck and neck between the two. I'm thinking you could have a national championship game like you had last year where Wisconsin won by a few points over Nebraska. I think that could be this year where Nebraska does that with Texas. So we'll certainly see, but I think it's going to be those two by year's end.
Well, if they are playing the national championship, competing for that, it's possible, depending on how this season goes for Nebraska football, that the volleyball team could be playing longer than football team. Once again, I don't think any of us, well, maybe some of us, I don't know. I think me and Steve have season records of 7-5 for Nebraska football. Greg, what was your season prediction?
It was the particular hell of 6-6.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because that would bring up some stuff that would be some mighty interesting decisions, and I feel like we can never have nice things, so it'll just take a turn and go 6-6.
Jeff, can I put you on the spot again? What was your record prediction?
I have them 5-7. I don't see them making a bowl game because until they show they can win in clutch moments in games, I have to see it, and they haven't shown it in any season under Scott Frost. So until I see them do it, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, I respect that look too, because I'm kind of a Missouri show me state type of mentality. A lot of times, I think the schedule lines up for them to have a 7-5 finish or 6-6, but 5-7, I don't think I don't think that's blasphemy by any stretch of the imagination. Depending on how some things go, but how things go, we'll start to get an idea of that on Saturday. We're now doing math here, 26 hours and 20 minutes away from kickoff from Aviva Stadium, the Dublin debut. These were our first round of bold predictions. And Jeff, I'll throw you an extra 3 points for boldness for Nebraska national title win at the end of the season if that happens, since I threw you on the spot there, because none of us had to predict the volleyball national championship, and I'm certainly not going to right now. We have a football game to focus on Saturday. Jeff's going to be out at the Huskers volleyball team's debut this weekend, Corpus Christi and Tulsa, first up on the docket, and I'll be on the ground in Dublin providing coverage of the season opener. Steve and Greg will be stateside providing coverage as well. Jeff will be alongside. This is the core four right here that's going to be providing a lot of coverage all season long. We have our weekly game week content plan already in place, and we got a lot of good stuff, written and digital content coming for you guys. Just a reminder to please subscribe to the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel for free, and then nebraska.rivals.com. Subscribe there to get all of our premium content and access to our message boards. One of the most interesting seasons that we could ask for coming up for Nebraska football. A lot of things that could happen, good, bad, or indifferent. So we'll get all of it rocking and rolling on Saturday at 5:30.